A specific date appears on the calendar, and suddenly it gets turned into ammunition. Silver holders across the internet start believing a brand new IRS regulation just targeted them directly. February 15th shows up in a screenshot, spreads through social media, and before long it's been transformed into an immediate threat. Let's break this down properly, because there's no mystery here. This isn't some sudden crackdown that appeared this week. It's existing framework. Here's what's actually happening. The February 15th date people are pointing to has been part of the system for years, as a standard deadline connected to certain information returns, particularly broker-related forms like the 1099-B and consolidated statements that include 1099-B data. IRS guidance explains that due dates for furnishing recipient statements can shift when they land on weekends or holidays. For the current filing cycle, the IRS General Instructions list the recipient statement date as February 17, 2026, not because silver got singled out, but because of how the calendar falls. That's the actual story. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to walk through what that February date really represents, why it's being connected to silver, how reporting actually functions when you purchase versus when you sell, the two reporting frameworks most people mix up, and the precise indicators you should monitor before entering any sell-to-us transaction. We'll also address the paper versus physical distinction, because that's where emotional decisions tend to happen. Most of the confusion stems from mixing up three separate things: tax reporting you handle on your individual return, information reporting that a business or broker submits to the IRS, and cash transaction reporting rules designed for anti-money laundering purposes. These aren't interchangeable. Here's the straightforward breakdown. When you sell silver at a profit, you typically have a tax obligation to report that gain on your return. That responsibility falls on you. Separately, under certain circumstances, a dealer might be required to file an information return, like Form 1099-B for a transaction. That obligation falls on them. Then there's Form 8300, which deals with large cash payments in a trade or business. That form isn't about profits at all. It's about the payment method and the dollar amount. Different system, different trigger. This brings us to the February 15th confusion. That date appears because it sits within a standard deadline window for furnishing certain recipient statements tied to 1099 forms, including 1099-B. The IRS publishes a guide listing due dates for information returns, and it explicitly shows 1099-B with a February 15th recipient statement date in chart format. That date can shift depending on the year. The IRS General Instructions also confirm that for the relevant filing cycle, those recipient statements are due February 17th, 2026. Calendar mechanics, not a targeted enforcement action. So when someone claims there's a new IRS rule targeting silver holders before February 15th, what they're typically reacting to is the deadline for furnishing the form copy. Not a new law, not a seizure program, not a mandate to register your holdings. Once people believe February 15th represents some kind of compliance trap, they start making reactive moves. They try to avoid dealers. They rush sales. They change payment methods without understanding what actually triggers reporting. That's how mistakes happen. And mistakes create exactly the kind of paper trail people are trying to avoid. Let's talk about the chain reaction. First, someone sees a headline. Then they assume buying silver gets reported. Then they assume selling silver automatically gets reported. Then they conclude the IRS is tracking everyone's stack. Then panic decisions follow. That doesn't require conspiracy. It just requires basic human behavior. Now let's separate purchasing from selling. When you buy, most routine precious metals purchases aren't reported to the government as standard transaction reports. Reporting commonly enters the picture when a business receives cash payments exceeding $10,000, because that can trigger Form 8300 requirements, depending on how the payment is structured. People sometimes misunderstand what qualifies as cash in this reporting context, because cash can include certain monetary instruments under specific conditions. The mistake is thinking that avoiding paper bills means nothing gets reported. That's not how this works. On the sell side, the reporting discussion changes because the 1099-B question involves whether a dealer is required to report certain transactions meeting specific criteria. The criteria aren't simply, you sold silver. They're about selling certain forms of metal in certain quantities under particular reporting rules. That's why you'll encounter terms like reportable items list, thresholds, and product types. Here's an important signal. If a dealer asks you to complete a W-9 before they can pay you on a sell to us order, that's usually an indication you're entering a reportable scenario. Not guaranteed, but it's a strong clue, because the form is tied to collecting your taxpayer information for reporting purposes. This pattern has repeated before, not because the IRS suddenly decided to pursue stackers, but because every year around the same tax document window, the same dates and form names circulate, and the community responds predictably. It compresses a complex compliance system into a single alarming statement. February 15th becomes threatening. 1099-B becomes threatening, and viewers get pushed toward urgency. You're given a timer. That's the psychological mechanism. But the timer usually relates to the paperwork schedule, not a new rule targeting individuals. Let's address the paper versus physical distinction, because this matters. Paper silver exists inside a brokerage system. Statements, cost basis, proceeds. Everything is structured to be reported. Physical silver is different. It exists in your possession, your storage, under your control. But here's the uncomfortable part. The moment you convert physical into a reported transaction, you've turned part of the physical story back into paper. Not because physical lacks legitimacy, but because the transaction itself is the reportable event. That's structural reality. What actually changed for most people? Nothing. Your ounces didn't change because of a calendar date. Your silver didn't become illegal overnight. Your ability to purchase and hold didn't disappear. What changed is the noise level, and that noise is being leveraged to influence behavior. The fundamentals remain unchanged. Silver is still silver. It's still viewed as a monetary metal by those who see it that way. It's still priced as a commodity by the system that trades it that way. The tax rules exist regardless of market emotion. The only advantageous position here is to be educated and intentional. Here are the signals worth monitoring. First, are you buying or selling? Many people don't even clarify this when they panic. They just hear IRS and assume it applies universally. Second, is the transaction cash or a non-cash payment method, like wire or card? Cash-style payments are what trigger the Form 8300 discussion, not the metal itself. Third, is the dealer requesting a W-9 as a condition of the sell to us transaction? That's a significant signal you may be in a category where a 1099-B applies. Fourth, what product form and quantity are you moving? Reporting triggers, when they apply, tend to be tied to specific product categories and thresholds, not typical small retail activity. Fifth, what date are we actually discussing? Because in the IRS general instructions for the current cycle, the recipient statement due date for forms like 1099-B is February 17th, 2026. So if someone is emphasizing February 15th as a deadline cliff, the first question should be whether they're simply repeating the default date without checking the actual calendar year adjustment. Don't let a date manipulate you. Once you accept the premise that you're being hunted, clear thinking stops. You rush. You start believing every transaction automatically gets reported, and then you do the one thing that actually increases risk. You act without a plan. That's the real trap. The system doesn't need to pursue you if it can push you into self-inflicted errors. Here are two questions. Do you think most of the fear circulating online comes from people who've actually read the IRS guidance, or from people repeating screenshots? Answer honestly. Second, if you had to choose, would you rather optimize for privacy or for clean compliance? Pick one, because your strategy depends on that answer. This doesn't conclude on February 15th. The pattern is larger than one deadline. The next wave follows the same formula. More clips, more claims, more urgency. Then a group of people sell at the worst time for the worst reasons, directly into the hands of buyers, waiting for exactly that scenario. Here's the tension. If silver volatility spikes again, while paperwork panic is loud, do weak hands get flushed out, or does the physical market tighten? That's the actual question. Let's summarize cleanly. The February 15th discussion is largely about an information return statement deadline window, not a new silver-specific IRS rule. IRS guidance shows these deadlines can shift by calendar, and the current cycle lists February 17, 2026 for certain recipient statements like 1099-B. Buying and selling are not the same event, and different triggers apply. Form 8300 is about large cash payments in a trade or business. Form 1099-B is about certain reportable broker-style transactions. If a dealer asks for a W-9 on a sell-to-us order, that signals you might be entering that zone. The biggest risk is panic behavior, not the metal itself.